Let's learn how to make gingerbread cookies. I know you're probably wondering why I'm making these in the middle of July. Well, let me tell you, these are spicy, delicious cookies that can be made any time of the year. And today is my anniversary, so I thought this would be a special occasion. Here are the ingredients, but don't worry, there will be a link below as usual that will give you the ingredients, written nutrition information, and more details about these cookies. Begin by preheating your oven to 350 or 180°C. And then you're going to get 1 cup of butter or 226 grams. That's 2 sticks, and you want it well softened. You want to be able to push on it and it will be giving away easily. To this, you add in 1/2 cup or 120 milliliters of black molasses. If you can't find that, you can use any kind of molasses. You can use sorghum and you can use honey. You can even use maple syrup. You just want some kind of sticky liquid. And I have actually used corn syrup in the past and people really enjoyed them. However, honey or molasses is the traditional way to go, and it seems like molasses is more common in the States. Use 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, well packed, that's 169 grams. You can also go down as little as a 1/2 cup if you're not really keen on sugar, and you can go up to a whole cup if you don't plan to ice these. And what you're going to do next is you're just going to beat this until it's nice and smooth and creamy like this. Next thing, add in 1 egg or 50 grams, and you just want to beat this until it's really well combined and you don't see the egg streaks any and it's not like curdly looking. Once you get to that stage, you're going to add in your flour and your spices. If you have a sifter, use your sifter. If you don't have a sifter, put it all in a bowl and mix it with a wire whisk or even a fork. You want to get some air into these cookies so that they will be nice and light and tender. Okay, you're going to need 3 1/3 cup of flour, that's 500 grams, and I'm just going to do it in stages because my sifter isn't big enough. 1/2 teaspoon of allspice, which is 2 grams. 1 1/2 teaspoons of cinnamon, that's 6 grams. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, that's 2.5 grams. And then finally, 1 tablespoon of ginger, that's 6 grams. You really want the ginger to shine here, so don't be tempted to put too much more cinnamon in there. You want to taste this ginger. Now, allspice is a poor man's nutmeg and clove spice. It has a very similar taste to those two spices when combined. And if you don't have allspice, you can use 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg and 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. I don't use nutmeg or cloves because they're very expensive and I want to make this accessible to everybody. Next thing you're going to do, you're going to beat this until it just starts to come together. You don't want to see any more flour, but it's going to be kind of crumbly, but when you squeeze it together, it's going to squeeze together really nicely and it'll pack down like this. So take your time, get all that you can get off of the beaters because you're really going to enjoy this cookie. The next step is chilling the dough. You're going to have to get something to wrap it in. I like to use plastic wrap. And I take half the dough and I form it into a square because I find a square is easier to roll out. You can also make it into a circle, however you want to do this. And then you just press it as thin as you can make it. This will save you some steps later on. If you have this big chunk of dough that's this tall right now that I'm showing you, it's going to be harder to roll out later and it takes longer to chill. By making it thinner, you're speeding up the process. You chill this at least 30 minutes if you're using it today. Overnight will help develop those flavors and it'll be worth the wait if you can handle it. But I understand there's sometimes you're in a hurry and you want to make this quickly. The reason why you have to chill the dough at all is because that butter was really soft, and if you try to roll this out now the way it is, it's going to lose its shape, and also it will tend to stick to your rolling pin, and then you'll be tempted to put flour on your rolling pin and then you can have a tough cookie, and you really don't want that. These are Americanized gingerbread cookies. They're soft, they're chewy, they're delicious, but they also hold up well. You can build structures out of this like gingerbread houses or make really nice ornaments. This is just a really lovely recipe. So I'm just wrapping it up and I'm putting it to the side, and I'm going to show you another thing you can do if you don't have any cookie cutters and you still want to have gingerbread cookies. All you have to do is get another piece of plastic wrap, put it down, and then we're going to just shape this into a log the size of a cookie we want. And it's very pliable right now. It feels a lot like Play-Doh. So you can really make this into a square or you can make it into a circle. I'm going to make it into about a 2-inch circle round log, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just what you want the end result to be, because we did not, if you notice, put any baking soda or baking powder in this recipe. That is intentional. We want this to be kind of like a shortbread, and we don't want spread on this cookie because we want it to keep shape. And that is the secret. By not putting in the stuff that makes the cookie puff or make the cookie spread, we're going to get a cookie that stays the same shape it should be. You should get very little distortion when you're making these. So if you are making this into a log like this, it's going to take longer to chill, probably about an hour at least. Or you can freeze this until you're ready to use it. You can freeze it about 3 to 6 months. After 6 months, it starts to get freezer burned. It's still edible, but it's just not very tasty. So I recommend chucking it or using it by then. But you may be getting this back out of the freezer after you make the first batch because you'll say, these are so delicious, I want all of them. I'm going to cut off one of these and let you see what it looks like after it's baked, and that way you'll know what to expect. Again, there is no leavening, so it's not going to spread very far and it's not going to puff up very far. That is intentional, so remember whatever shape that you rolled it into, that's pretty much what you're going to get. This is a wonderful way to make cookies if you don't have a cookie cutter, because they're not always easy to find, especially right now. I'm going to put this to the side and then I'm going to roll out some cookie dough. If it is sticking to your rolling pin, you can put some flour on it. Just try not to go more than a couple tablespoons because you don't want a tough cookie. But don't stress if you have to put flour on it. Also, if you see it's cracking a lot, that just means it's a little too chilled and you just need to let it warm up a little bit. Don't worry if you have to let it warm up and then re-chill it. You can keep chilling this dough as long as you want. I like to get them about a 1/4 inch thick. You can go down as little as 1/8 of an inch, but a 1/4 inch seems to be a really nice compromise. It's about 3 millimeters if I'm correct. I could be completely wrong, so don't hold me to that one. And I just try to get them as close as possible when I'm cutting them out, and then I just like to pull them off with a spatula. If you like, after you've pressed the cookie dough out, you can chill this again and it will be really easy to get them off the sheet. I'm using a silicone mat so that they don't stick to the countertop. If you are putting this directly on the countertop, feel free to sprinkle the countertop with some flour so it doesn't stick to the countertop. And if they do distort a little bit whenever you're putting them on your cookie sheet, don't worry. You can gather up all the scraps, and as long as it's still pretty cool to the touch, you can go ahead and just re-roll it out and just make some more cookies. If it is starting to feel slimy and really thin and it sticks a lot to your it sticks a lot to your rolling pin like it's doing here, you could chill the dough a little bit, maybe about 10 minutes, and then it would be a lot easier, or you could just pat it out like I'm doing. It's a pretty forgiving recipe. You don't want to overhandle the dough. So if you're having to handle the dough a lot, please just pop it in the refrigerator for another 10 to 15 minutes to get the rest of those cookies. If you noticed, I'm placing these really super close together. That's the also benefit of this recipe. You don't have to worry about them spreading and touching each other too much. So leave about a 1/4 of an inch at the most, maybe about a 1.5 centimeters distance between the cookies, and you won't have to worry about it at all. I'm putting them on parchment paper. You can use a silicone baking mat or a nonstick surface. It's up to you how you want to do that. And then you want to bake them from anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes for an average size cookie like this one. If you have those super giant cookies, you might need to go up to 18 minutes, so just be aware of that. After you finish baking these, let them sit 1 minute and then remove them to a cooling rack and let them cool completely if you plan to ice these. If you try to ice these while they're still warm, the icing will just fall off and you'll be really sad. It's going to be hard to wait because they smell amazing, but trust me, wait or you're just not going to be happy. I'll open one up so you can see how delicious this cookie looks. It's just a nice, simple, tender crumb. Now, if you don't have meringue powder or royal icing, let's do a simple powdered sugar glaze. You use 1 cup, 125 grams of powdered sugar, and you add in a couple tablespoons of milk, about 30 milliliters. If you have a very humid climate, start out with 1 tablespoon first because moisture tends to cling to powdered sugar and you don't want to put too much milk in it. I'll show you the consistency you're looking for. You want it to be a little drizzle, and if it's dry that day, you might need to add just a hint more of milk, and I'm talking maybe like 1/8 of a teaspoon. So just go slow, and if worst case scenario your icing is too thin or too thick, just add a little more milk or a little more powdered sugar. This is a very cheap way to ice cookies from home, especially if you're working with, your family and you want to make something cheap. And you can put it in a bag and snip off the end, or you can just dip them like this. It doesn't take much time, and you just let them drain a little bit before you flip them over, or they're gonna seep off the edges, and that's okay too. And if you don't like this messy method, you can use a spoon and you can kind of spread the icing on with a spoon. And I'll show you that this way. And as you can see, it's pretty easy. You just put it in the middle and then you just spread it out to the edges. But it's not going to be as fancy because honestly, I suck at decorating cookies. I'm just going to show you how you can make some kind of icing and then you can do it any way you want. The next thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how to make a swirl pattern, which I think is really pretty. And you just need some food coloring. Any kind of food coloring will work. You can use the gel, you can use the powdered, you can also use the old-fashioned kind that's just like the drip kind. I have all three. This is a gel that I just picked up at the supermarket, and it's really good for cake decorating, but it's not good for baking for some reason. It just pales by comparison, so I'll use it for cookie decorating. And you just put a couple drops just randomly in your bowl, like one here, and let's put one down here. You could put another one if you wanted to. It doesn't matter. Get you a little toothpick. If you don't have a toothpick, just use like a fork and just run it back and forth. Don't mix it up. Just run it until you get streaks, and you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. Like this. And then you're just going to dip your cookie straight in. And they show these videos where you can do this multiple times with cookies. I found after one time, that's all you pretty much get. After that, it starts to like blend a little bit more. You can try it and see what I'm talking about, but usually what I do at that point is I just mix it up and I get like a pink frosting, which is nice because you get a bunch of different kinds of cookies. While they're wet, you can also put some sprinkles on them or use some cinnamon like I did on that one. But let's look at this swirl one. It is just so pretty. After about 10 to 15 minutes, they'll dry and they will give this nice sheen to them. I hope you enjoyed this recipe from jacksonsjob.com. Visit us for more if you are a cookie fiend, because I love to bake them. And happy baking. Have a great day, guys.